So, how's everybody doing out there in quarantine land? I have been really fascinated by the sheer amount of triggers that this has been bringing up for everyone. And it seems that, everyone has something that this has been bringing up for them, and a lot of things are overlapping as well. So, I just wanted to do a couple of episodes that went over what was triggering people the most and how to specifically deal with those individual triggers that are coming up and to understand what's going on behind them. Now, the purpose of this show is not to say that your triggers are invalid. I'm not here to invalidate you. Whatever's bothering you matters. It matters. It may be completely a valid concern or worry. And what I'm here to say is that being emotionally triggered doesn't help anything. So, what could you do to get to a place of being calm and being able to make actual plans that would help to remedy the situation instead of sitting there in your anxiety and in your worry and in your fear? So, a lot of people in this culture feel like we need anxiety to push us forward to take action or to do what's necessary to create change. And I don't really buy into that. I feel like if we can plan and use caution instead of fear, there's a big difference between caution and fear, and make calm, confident plans instead of acting out of a place of triggered emotionality, we are much more effective and also we're much healthier. So, I mean, it affects your health in a huge way to constantly be in this state of fear. And I feel like everybody right now is kind of in this intense state of, fear and triggeredness. So I really wanted to go over some of the major things that have been going on with people in order to remove those triggers so that you can move on, so you can enjoy this time, so that you can connect with others, so that you can move past the pain and actually see whatever gifts or blessings may be coming in this for you, because there certainly is a greater purpose happening behind the scenes with all of this on a universal level. So, we know that a lot of the systems have been corrupt for a long time, that there's been a lot of corruption in the government, that there's been a lot of corruption in the medical and pharmaceutical industries, that, schools needed to upgrade and change, that financial situations needed to be upgraded and changed, that our society and culture overall kind of needed to be upgraded and changed, that a lot of things needed to change to help the earth. So really behind the scenes, all of this is leading to something better, but it's like we have to get to this collective rock bottom first before we actually get to the results that we want and hope for eventually. So we're just in one of those really ugly parts that needs to happen in order to get there. So I just want to let you know that as I go through these triggers, that you need to make sure that you're looking at whatever it is that triggers you, not only in this current situation, but also to look at what in your life similarly has triggered you before. When have you felt this way before? So if things are bringing up a sense of hopelessness or powerlessness or a sense of feeling trapped, when in your life before have you felt hopeless? When have you felt trapped? And so you just want to look at, how is this particular trigger making me feel about myself, about my life, about how other people are treating me? And when have I been treated similarly, or when have I been made to feel this way before? And so when you're doing the clearing work, when you're using the PS Tech click tracks to deal with the triggers that are coming up for you now, you'll get the best results. You'll get the most permanent clearing by also including all the other times in your life that you have felt the way that this thing is making you feel. So just to give you that background, just keep that in mind as I go through any of these triggers. If they're really jumping out at you, then make sure to look at, when else have I felt this way? What's my history with this trigger? So that you're not just clearing it in the present time, but you're also clearing it in the past, usually from your childhood, because that's when most of our triggers are birthed. So if you're using that, then you can prevent future triggerings of similar things. So you're not just clearing the current fear, you're also making it so that you won't be reactive the next time something similar happens, and you'll be able to just face it head on calmly instead of being triggered by it and having to do more work on it to clear it. So that's why you want to look in your history for what are some possible roots of this particular trigger that's bothering me right now. So I took to social media to kind of ask everybody, what are your biggest triggers with this? What's really bothered you the most? Or what triggers have you been observing in other people? So there were probably 10 times the amount of triggers that I was expecting that people shared. And I noticed a pattern that a lot of the triggers had an us versus them kind of situation going on. So for almost every trigger, there was an equal and opposite trigger that other people were experiencing. So today, I'm going to actually cover those particular triggers. And then next week, I'm going to do another episode that is on some of the more obvious triggers, some of the things that are a little bit more singular. So next week, we'll be covering overwhelm, the loss of control, unknown and uncertainty and not being able to plan for the future, grief over losing the normal life that you've had so far, shock of the rug being pulled out from under you, fear of the future fallout of what this might bring, the possibility of a financial depression or recession, exhausting mood shifts, being like super anxious and hyper vigilant, or just being like kind of numb or worn out or just exhausted or depressed. And then also the fear of going out in public again after all of this, either because of other humans and all of the anger and stuff that's been going on, or because of the virus itself and, fears for your health and safety. Plus, empathy for others. So, like just worrying about everybody else who's struggling with all the other triggers that this is bringing up for people. And weight gain and eating out of comfort, need for comfort. So that's what we'll be covering next week. But this week, I just want to go over the us versus them kind of triggers. So the first set is, on one side, you have people complaining about others not listening, not following the rules, not taking proper precautions. So, oh, they're not washing their hands well enough. They're wearing gloves or they're not wearing gloves. They're wearing masks or they're not wearing masks. It's just like all of this judgment of like, what's that person over there doing wrong? And they should be doing it right. And then feeling unheard. So, they're giving advice or they're suggesting or they're saying, you should be staying home, whatever. And if the other people aren't doing that, it makes them feel unheard. Now, interestingly, it also brings up a very similar trigger to the people on the other side of this argument who are feeling like they're being pushed around, like they're being bossed around, told what to do or what to believe. They're feeling shamed. They feel like they're having their freedoms removed. And, one of the triggers for me was the idea of, what if I can't go outside this spring or summer? Um, and people are triggered by the idea of having to wear masks. And both sides, it's kind of a sense of powerlessness, because the people who want everybody to be doing what the authorities are saying to do want to get those other people to do that, because they feel like the people not doing those things will affect them and their families and their health and the outcome of this and how long it takes and so on and so forth. And whether that's true or valid or not doesn't matter if that's a trigger for you. Really, what's there is this sense of powerlessness and this sense of feeling unheard. And also kind of having your feelings dismissed. So, like, we want to look at When have your feelings been dismissed? When have you felt powerless? When have you felt invalidated throughout the course of your life? So, this is really bringing that up. And also, the other thing with this is a sense of I work so hard to follow the rules and to do everything right. And these people are just throwing caution to the wind and they're not following any of the rules and so on. So, that's one of the main triggers there is this sense of like I have always had to follow the rules in order to get approval, in order to get love, in order to be considered a good kid, whatever. It's this, this obligation and this feeling of like I have to follow the rules in order to fit in or get my needs met or whatever. And so there's this feeling of how dare they not follow the rules when I work so freaking hard to follow the rules all the time and try to do everything right. And how can they do this thing I would never do? So you can use the click track to have a fit about that. Or if it's a feeling of nobody's listening to me, I'm offering advice, or someone asks me for advice. This was a specific one. Somebody said that people ask them for advice all the time and then don't follow through and don't follow it. And I have a feeling that for that person, that's a lifelong theme. They haven't been respected for their sovereignty, their knowledge, things like that. And so they were probably to some degree dismissed by their parents and teachers and friends and relationships and all of that. And so combining all of those memories into the same round where you're freaking out about why isn't anyone listening to me would be a fantastic way to be able to clear that particular trigger. And I'm not saying that it's not valid, but what I'm saying is, what is it serving for you to hold on to that anger, that pain, that angst? What if you could move past it, be able to focus on something else or ways that you actually could help and make a difference? So just following through with that. And then on the other side, it's really, feeling powerless, feeling like people are taking away your rights. What if our privacy gets taken away? What if our freedom gets taken away? What if we're not allowed to go outside? What if we have to wear masks and it's a law instead of a choice? And just, with these people, they will tend to have had parents who were really controlling and they hated it. So if you had a particularly controlling parent growing up, this would be a big trigger for you because you would feel like, oh, here we go again. Everybody's telling me what to do, what I have to do, and I don't get to choose anything for myself. So you can use the click track to have a fit about how effing tired you are of people always controlling you and telling you what to do and forcing you to do things you don't want to do and so on and so forth. Making sure to start with now, because it's the most poignant, strong emotion, but then including a bunch of times through your past and definitely your childhood where you were controlled or bossed around and told what to do all the time and kind of felt powerlessness and not being able to make choices and decisions for yourself. So that would be a really good way to clear those particular triggers. So that's kind of an interesting, like how both sides of that argument are feeling in all of that and where those triggers are coming from. And it's very interesting how we all attract people who are kind of that counterbalance so that we can trigger each other and bring up those particular triggers and be able to clear them and heal them. That's why all these triggers are coming up right now in this world, because it's time to clear them so that when we move on to something better, we're able to go into that far less triggered. We're able to bring a better energy, a better understanding, a better openness to whatever comes next. All right, so the next pair is being stuck at home full time with toxic family members. So someone brought this up to me the other day, and they were saying, imagine if you had all of the technology that you have available to you now, but you were still in high school and you had to stay at home with your family for 2 weeks to 2 months, somewhere in that range. How would you have felt? How would you have dealt with that? Would it have felt like a healthy place to be? How would you be dealing with all of that? And it was kind of eye-opening. I mean, if I were a high school senior, I would be really upset about missing out on prom and things like that. So, I understand those parts of the triggers, but the big part is that, if you have family members at home that tend to struggle already with their emotions, that that is going to be a hotbed of just stress and triggeredness and people yelling at each other and fighting and drama and all kinds of things, and really a lack of privacy, a lack of time to yourself. So, I know that would have been difficult for me. And I had a fairly healthy upbringing with loving parents and family, but there were still like a lot of emotional triggers that would have happened. And something like this situation would have really made that skyrocket. So I can't imagine what this must be like for kids and people who are in abusive situations, who are in severely toxic situations. And so my heart goes out to you. And incidentally, people have also mentioned something similar of like having to do all these Zoom meetings with coworkers who are toxic or want to talk about really stupid, inane things like what the Kardashians are up to or whatever. And it's just like, can we just focus and do what we came on this call to do and move on? So there's a lot of that kind of stuff of like being forced to interact on a regular basis with people that you'd rather just be able to get up and walk away from, that you can't. So a sense of feeling trapped, a sense of feeling stuck, fear, any of that stuff, you just use the click track to feel that particular thing, whatever it is that keeps looping for you, whatever that feeling is that keeps coming up for you. If it's fear, then feel the fear of like, what if they hit me again? What if they abuse me? What if they yell at me some more? What if I get in trouble for this? And then just go through your whole history of those kinds of things happening to you. Or if it's, a coworker situation, why can't they just focus on what's important? And so, you would look at like your history of people not really like respecting your time, or focusing on what's supposed to be like important or what's important to you, and your frustration around that. And the other one with that is too, like not having any time to yourself, not having any time alone. So that overwhelm, so you can click track that sense of like how overwhelming it is to constantly be surrounded by people who have different needs of privacy or alone time or whatever. So definitely zoning in on that too. On the other side of that particular one, you've got people who feel alone or lonely. Like there are people sheltering in place by themselves, and that would be lonely anyway for most people. I mean, some people really enjoy that and revel in that. There's a lot of introverts who are like, yay, finally got some time to myself, an excuse to not go out in the world. So, with the people who do feel alone or lonely, you can use the click track to just have a pity party or feel alone or feel lonely. And if this is the only time you've ever felt alone or lonely, then that's fine. And you can just use it on that and it will help you feel better. But chances are that if that's the thing that's really sticking in your craw and really coming up over and over again, then, and you find yourself kind of wallowing in it, then you want to also include other times where you have felt alone or felt lonely or felt left out or anything of that nature. And then mixed up in this other side of it as well is the fear of losing loved ones or dying yourself. So the sense of like, uh-oh, what if, someone I love gets corona? Or what if I get corona? And what if I die of that? Or what if I lose somebody I really care about because of this? So you can click track that as well. I mean, really, most of the whole click track process is focusing on what thoughts you're already thinking that are disturbing you, and just thinking those while you do the track. But incidentally, if you ever have lost people or pets that really meant a lot to you in the past, then you can include your grief from those in the same round where you worry about losing someone you care about. And the other part of this too is worrying for people who have to stay on their own. Like if you have elderly parents or something of that nature, you're kind of worried about them and their mental health being stuck inside and not being able to go anywhere and all of that. So that's definitely something I've seen up close and personal with people that I care about, that, they're just so worried that their parents or their older friends are going to really be emotionally destroyed by this. And so that's, another part of the whole thing, or just missing them, wanting to spend time with family and not being able to be in their presence when, it's important. Like Easter or Passover, where you would normally spend some time with your family in a group like that, and not being able to do that other than online. So basically, with those kinds of things, you just would do the same thing. You would use the click track and just kind of wallow in that, like how much you miss them, how much you wish you could spend time with them right now, or how sad you feel for them for not being able to get out of the house or do the things that they usually love doing. So you can do that. Um, and you can include pastimes of similar things if that brings any memories up for you as well. So now, another one that's kind of an us versus them thing is the whole trying to work from home while also helping your kids with their online schoolwork. And how overwhelming that is, because you're trying to get everything that you would normally be able to get done on your own at home, like it just things you would be able to do from your workplace, or if you already were working from home, being able to do that because the kids were off at school kind of doing their thing. But now the kids are home, and not only are the kids home, so you have to feed them and give them attention and whatever, but also they're doing a new thing of trying to learn remotely on the computer. And so often you have to set up like, okay, what's your next lesson? And then if they have questions and need help and support, you have to do that with them. And then you're still expected to get your normal work done. So a lot of people are working from sun up to sundown, trying to get everything they would normally get accomplished, plus trying to help their children with that. And if you're a single parent household, it's even more intense. So, or if you've got two people trying to work from home, plus a kid or several kids trying to homeschool, I mean, really imagine the logistics of that, of who gets computer at a certain time and how much Wi-Fi bandwidth there is. And there's just a lot going on. So, I would really just freak out about how overwhelming it all is, and how it just feels like you never have any downtime, any time to rest. And God, you basically just do a click track round where you're feeling overwhelmed. If you have had times in your past where there was just a lot coming at you and a lot of responsibilities kind of being thrust upon you, maybe as a kid, your parents expected you to really step up and help raise the other kids, or, expected you to take on a lot at school and do a lot of sports on top of getting straight A's and all of that. And it just felt really overwhelming. You can include times like that in that round. And if not, then just have a fit about how overwhelmed you are right now. So that's something you can do if you're on that side of the scale. But on the other side, you've got people who have lost their jobs or lost their homes or lost their income, and are either mourning that and just feeling scared. What am I going to do next? What's going to happen next? Am I ever going to get another job? When are we going to be able to go back to work? Am I going to lose my home? Where will I live now? like, and also, nobody's showing houses now, and apartment places are doing everything remotely. So there's a lot of like fear and frustration there. So with that, I mean, it's really just paying attention to what your particular fears or worries are around that. And we'll come back to how to deal with financial fears. So we'll dive a little bit more deeply into that. But really, to start off, just go with whatever it is that you're worrying about, whatever it is that you're afraid of, um, whatever it is that you're feeling badly about. You just kind of think those thoughts and feel those feelings while you do the click track. So that's what you do with that. And then the other people, it's a sense of purposelessness. So even if they're financially okay, and they know they'll be able to go back to work at some point. There's just this sense of like, what the hell am I supposed to be doing with this time right now? And, normally my job kind of fulfills me and gives me a purpose in this world. And now I'm just sitting here twiddling my thumbs and binge watching TV shows and comfort eating and just kind of feeling like I'm not getting anything accomplished. And so, that once again is really just about feeling that sense of just, I have no purpose here. I have no reason to get out of bed. So you can just kind of click track that and wallow in that. You could also use belief blasters to do something like, I had no reason to get out of bed in the morning, or my work was my only purpose, or something along those lines, or I didn't know what my purpose was in this world, anything along those lines. But first, I would address the emotions of that using the click tracks. And then if you find that it's still bothering you, then you could go over to the belief blasters and do that. So that's that particular set of triggers. And then this is such a big one. There are people who are feeling like we should be accomplishing a lot during this time, that it's giving us an opportunity to build our businesses or develop a new skill, or really dive into something and learn something new, and all of that. And that's valid. I mean, if that's what you want to do with this time, please do. That's wonderful. But expecting other people to do that and being angry or frustrated with them for not doing what you would do in that situation, not so productive. So, usually, where this is coming from is when you were a kid, you probably weren't allowed to be lazy. Just sitting around doing nothing was punished. It wasn't okay. It was bad. It was wrong. You were lazy. And you developed kind of a sense of anyone who's being lazy deserves to be punished. And typically, if you are at work, you're working really hard and you get super frustrated with your coworkers who are being lazy or laid back. And you see type B personalities as really annoying, really frustrating, really lazy. And what's going on there is just that you were never allowed to behave a certain way. And so now you're like, well, why the hell are they allowed to behave like that? So it's kind of similar to that first set of triggers where everybody was like, why aren't they wearing masks? Why aren't they staying inside? Why aren't they washing their hands? This is, why aren't they using this time to their advantage? And so I would use this to have a fit about, why isn't everyone using this time properly? Or even if you're mad at yourself for not using that time properly, kind of having a fit at yourself for not using it the way that you feel like you should be. Or you can just think about all of the times where you were never allowed to be lazy, and so how dare everybody else be lazy, like when you work so hard not to be. So you can do either one of those or both. And then on the other side of that, there's the feeling of being pressured to perform. And this is a hugely emotional time. Like, people are in shock, people are grieving for the way of life that they had before. And it's like the rug has been pulled out from under them. So we can't necessarily expect ourselves to take advantage of this extra time in the way that we normally would if we just took it as a sabbatical to get something accomplished. We didn't choose this. We didn't decide, oh, I'm going to take this time off of work so that I can build this skill over here. It was just thrust upon us, and some people weren't ready for it, and some people are grieving, and some people are hurting, and some people are afraid. And so those are the things that need to be dealt with. And you shouldn't be putting pressure on yourself to perform right now. If you feel guided to, if you feel, like that would be something that would be super beneficial for you and you're excited by that, then by all means, go ahead and do something that, wakes you up and makes you feel good. But, don't feel pressure to learn a new language right now, or do something specific that builds your business. If you're exhausted, you're exhausted. If you're sad, you're sad. And that's where, you can use the click track to feel those feelings to help bring them down so that they're more manageable, or even remove them entirely, which then might give you the energy and strength or whatever it is that you need to be able to get inspired to do something with this time. But you can't expect yourself to accomplish these great massive things when your nervous system and your brain is on this hamster wheel of what if and why and how, and just freaking out. Like, how are you supposed to just magically make that go away and put your focus on something productive? So deal with whatever those emotions are using the click track, freak out about whatever you're freaking out about on a regular basis. That might open it up so that you can either do something productive or just relax, practice some self-care, and enjoy this time off. Either way, getting those emotions out of the way, and the guilt out of the way, and the shame out of the way, and the tendency to care what other people are thinking, which is also rife in a lot of these triggers. We are so programmed as humans to care what other people think about us. I mean, it's societal. We see it all the time. If you think about like middle school and high school and how programmed we are to care what those popular kids think. And, if you go further back, when we're infants, when we're toddlers, we see our parents as gods, and we understand that if we don't please them, these are the people that supply our food, our shelter, our love, our toys, our entertainment, our affection, like all of that. And so we have this deep innate understanding that if we displease them, any of those things could be taken away from us. And then going even further back than that, we can inherit our ancestors' triggers. And as far back as time goes, when we have lived in tribes and villages, we needed to contribute or we would get kicked out. And so it was literally a matter of survival, whether we were people pleasing or not. So it is so ingrained on us through our DNA, through our personal experiences, through our childhoods, through our culture. So, of course, we care what other people think. And we worry, what if I'm not doing enough? What if I'm not contributing? So, use the click track to freak out about what other people are thinking. Like, feel bad. I should be doing this, or this person. What if this person is judging me for not doing this? Freak out about that. And then look at, acknowledge all the things that I was just talking about, like times where you've experienced that kind of judgment and times that your ancestors might have experienced it, things of that nature. And just grouping all of that together in the same round to kind of get that people pleasing tendency and all of that shooting yourself out of your system at its root. So you can do that with that one. And this is kind of an interesting one. So this one is all about trust in the government. So many people right now are feeling like the government is really managing this poorly, or that we're being deceived in some way or distracted from something bigger that's going on behind the scenes. And so, maybe that they're blowing the whole COVID thing out of proportion, or that it's being misreported by the media. And so, there's just been so many conflicting stories, it's hard to know what to believe at this point. So there's a lot of that going on. And so, to start off with this trigger, there's kind of this feeling of things are really being mismanaged, and that there's a lot of corruption, and there's like poor leadership going on. So so this group is really concerned about that, triggered by that, worrying about that a lot. And one person in particular had a very specific trigger that she saw very clearly was related to this as well. She was saying that her boss is not a good leader, that her boss is really showing poor leadership skills, and that it directly reminds her of how she feels about the president doing what he's doing as far as managing this situation and how he's managed other things and things like that. And really, that's brilliant. I'm glad that she saw that because that's one of the roots of this. But chances are that she also probably had a father or people in her past who were not great parents or not great leaders. And so almost like she had to parent herself in some way. And so she couldn't rely on the people who were supposed to be in authority in her life. So this pattern's going to keep showing up for her until she clears it. So the best way to do that is to use the click track from PS Tech. And all of the links for all of these tools and everything will be in the comments for the show. So you can, in the description for the show. So you can check those out. But what you would do is use the click track to start out thinking about your boss and how bad he is at his leadership role, and then include your frustration with the government, include your frustration with anyone else, past bosses, past teachers, your parents, anyone else who really has not stepped up in their leadership role and done it well, and done it in the way that you wish it would have been done. And just kind of have an angry fit about all of that. And with any of these triggers at all, you just keep going. You do as many rounds as you need to get it down to either a 1 or a 0 on a scale of 0 to 10 as far as like your triggeredness of that thing. So that's what I would do with that one. But, there's just a lot of sense of, at least half of the country feeling like there's just so much corruption and greed and mismanagement and all of that. And the media is just really encouraging the infighting. You've got certain news channels touting one side of the story and other news channels touting the other side of the story, and they're just fanning the flames to fuel the fighting between each side, and it's not helping anything. So, we need to start letting go of that. We've got to stop watching the news channels that are so diametrically opposed. Like, you're only getting one side of the story, and half the time it's whatever, they're not in the business of telling us the truth. The news is not in the business of telling us the truth. They're in the business of selling ad space. So they're specifically and purposefully misinforming us, fanning the flames of hatred, and it's ridiculous. And they're sensationalizing fear. They're building fear, and that's their job, to make us feel afraid. So we keep watching. What do I do? What can I do? How can I fix this? And then they make you feel powerless because you can't. So either stop watching the news or find a neutral news source. You've got to stop looking at the fear-based dichotomy of the two sides and just find something that's neutral, or just stop watching because it's not helping anything. And if that triggers you, PS Tech that. Because I know we have been entrained over and over again, if you're not paying attention, then you're just, you're burying your head in the sand, and you're still going to get the news. You're still going to get information. So it's not going to hurt anything for you to stop watching the fear-based programming that is meant to make us fight each other. And the same thing goes for social media. It's very clear. These people believe this, these people believe this, and then all these trolls are coming on and trying to inflame each other and create fighting politically, religiously, everything. And stop it. And if it's bothering you, PS Tech it. If it's something that is upsetting you, then just have an angry fit about that situation so that you can move on from it, see it more clearly, see it from a higher perspective, and be able to take things as they come. So on the other side of that argument, so you've got, on one side, you've got the people feeling like the government is managing things poorly and there's all this corruption and greed. And on the other side, you've got people who are angry at people for not trusting the experts and the facts and things like that. And then you've also got anger of people who are mad at other people for getting wrapped up in their fear and taking it out on everyone else. So, any of those things, like whatever it is that's bothering you most about that, just use the click track, have an angry fit about it, and then also, include times from your past where you've had similar situations and experiences throughout your life. And the other piece of all of that too is just the level of misinformation that's been coming out. And there's not really much to be done about that part of it because there's just been so much unknown with COVID. It's they don't know if it can come back. They don't know how much it's going to change itself and how many different versions of COVID there are going to be. Um, they don't know how long it lasts. It's so there's just so much unknown about it that there was a lot of purposeful misinformation and there was a lot of just accidental misinformation. So it's been really difficult for anybody to really know what the best course of action has been as this has gone on. And that can definitely be a big trigger for a lot of people. Is just like, what do I do? I don't know. Is this the right answer? Is this the right answer? Who's on the right side? What's going to help me and what's not going to help me? What's going to help the world and what's not going to help the world? So having a fit about people not, people in authority not knowing what they're talking about, things like that. And so, if your parents kind of made up a lot of rules and things, but it also felt like you almost knew better than them, that might be a good thing to include in that round as well. And now this is the last one for today, and then we'll next week revisit, the other ones that I was talking about earlier. So with this one, and it's pretty simple, it's really just the feeling that there's going to be a lot of inequity as we get back to normal, so to speak, that there are people who are very rich and powerful, and there are people who are underprivileged. And the inequity that will likely be showing up over the next few years as a result of everything that's happening, there's likely to be some kind of market crash or a depression or recession or something that occurs. And typically that affects the underprivileged far more than it affects the rich and powerful. But it really could, it can crumble people on both sides. And there's just so much that it can affect on all levels. And the ripple effect of it affecting one group of people can eventually start affecting another group of people. And it's very triggering for the underprivileged people to see the middle class and the rich and powerful people seemingly doing fine, as the people who suffer the most and are often the least privileged of all of the groups are the first to be hard hit. So the unfairness of that can be really frustrating. And, I think that everybody will be affected to some degree, whether financially, emotionally, whatever. This is going to have a lot of fallout, and already has. um, so just really, once again, whatever it is that bothers you most about this, have an angry fit about it, feel that unfairness, go through the whole example, any examples from your own life of not having enough. So, or a sense of unfairness between like this kid or this family or these people get this and I only get this. Anything along those lines, you can kind of have an angry fit about that lack of fairness in the situation and just include as many examples as you possibly can. But I did promise that I would talk a little bit about how to deal with financial fears. So, with financial fears, just like with the caring what other people think, it comes from a lot of different places. So, we have our own experiences of financial fears and financial lack and things that have come up in our own lives and experiences. Um, even going back to childhood and the things our parents said to us about money or not having enough and things of that nature. But also, you want to look at what were their upbringings like. Did they have a sense of lack growing up? And have your ancestors been through things like the Great Depression, the potato famine, the Holocaust, slavery? Just looking at all of these times where the rug was kind of pulled out from under us financially, historically, and the fact that we can be carrying those triggers. And so anytime we come across this possibility that we won't have enough, or that the rug's going to be pulled out from under us, those triggers come up automatically. And so they need to be acknowledged when we're clearing our own fear of dealing with financial struggles and things. So just to be clear, using the click track, you want to stay negative the whole time. You don't want to be trying to make it a positive spin or anything like that. The track automatically does that for you. So you want to stay in the worry, stay in the fear, stay in the anger, stay in the suffering throughout the course of the track, and rate on a scale of 0 to 10 at the beginning and end of every round and see, where am I now with this trigger? Is it gone? Is it at a 3? Is it at a 7? Is it at a 10? And do as many rounds as you need to do to get it down to a 1 or a 0. That doesn't need to be all in one sitting. You can do up to like 3 rounds in a sitting, and then you might want to take a break. Come back to it later, come back to it the next day. Just keep chipping away at all of the different things that this is bringing up. This is an opportunity for us to be able to clear whatever it is that's still bothering us, whatever it is that's still blocking us, so that when things begin to change, we can create better change along with it, and we'll be able to take more calm, cautious action instead of operating out of fear, out of pain, out of lack, out of worry. We'll be able to just come in calm, take whatever next steps we need to take, and that's really what's important. So I want to remind you all to please subscribe so that you get notifications when the next episode comes out. And please feel free to leave reviews and feedback and everything. And I definitely put on Instagram and on Facebook some ways to put in what are your triggers. And so since I'm recording next week, you can still have a chance to, right now, if you're going to respond this week, you can pop in with what your triggers are as well, and I can help you address those on next week's episode. So I hope that the rest of your time inside and your quarantine is peaceful, and that you're able to quickly and easily move through the emotions, clear them on the subconscious level, because the whole purpose behind doing this work is that you understand on a conscious level how you should be reacting to things, and you understand that it's helpful to be calm and at ease. And yet some part of you is still freaking out. And so it's about getting that subconscious part of you to be at that logical, conscious, like understanding and wisdom, and not feeling constantly threatened all the time. So being able to get both parts of your brain to that place of calm confidence so that you can take action as needed. So, all right, we'll see you next week. And thank you. Thank you for being here.